So I've finished the Kyosho Lazer ZX-S rebuild / restoration. I figured that I didn't want to do a real-time build to finish up the build because for a few reasons. Number one, I don't like doing those. I really don't, because I only get so much time on certain days to do it. And if I'm going to make it worthwhile, I need to put a lot of time into it, and it just doesn't happen very often. I'd rather just do, little bits of the build here and there where I have time, and then I can do, a video like this to go over what I've done. Okay, fine. I don't want to spend too much time explaining that. So what I figured I would do is to describe how the ZX-S differs from the ZX-S Evolution, which is back there. And I can do this a bit more now because I now have an instruction manual for the ZX-S. One of my friends, Scott, managed to procure a few versions of the ZX-S manual, I believe, and it does show a few differences. Now, some of the differences we already know, like the ZX-S had low-C shocks, the Evo has Kyosho shocks. You have the front kick-up plate on the ZX-S as a one-piece chassis. The Evo has a two-piece flat chassis with the aluminum kick-up plate and then the brace connecting them. But there are other minor details that were not obvious to me or I didn't even know. So you'll notice that the Evo comes with the blue steering rack, as does the ZX-S. But the original build for the ZX-S, if we go over here, come on. Sorry, I'm trying to do this with one hand. Here we go. Actually uses the older style, just conventional Kyosho Lazer steering rack, the sort of not so great one, with this particular cross brace. So there are a few different, I guess what would you call this? Man, I am running out of words today. But this cross brace, the drag link, for the bell crank, you can get it. This one is perfectly straight between the center of these left and right holes and the center of these mounting holes. It's perfectly straight. This drag link here has a bit of an angle to it, as you can see, and that gives you some Ackerman adjustment. And I suppose you could flip it over to move the Ackerman one way or the other if you like. This one's flat. So this entire steering rack assembly here is not on this ZX-S as I had purchased it. This has the aftermarket rack. Okay, so that's one interesting point. The other piece here is, maybe it's obvious, but on the rear hub carriers, okay, these use the older ZXR hub carriers with the extension. So the manual actually tells you to use the top rightmost or the inner uppermost hole that you get with the hub extension. So actually it gives you the most camber gain. I don't know why they had that as the setup choice in the manual, but no matter. That is original for the ZX-S. The Evo uses the newer style like RB5 or ZX5 rear hub carriers. Okay, so those are different. And then if we go to the front, now on the Evo, when I built this Evo, I used Teamline front caster blocks. But the stock caster blocks that you would have are from the Kyosho TF4. They're not the LA27 or LA59 parts that are common on the older style lasers. It's actually from the TF4. It's a different style caster block. I go over this a bit in actually my Inferno 10, one of my Inferno 10 videos where I make some update to the front geometry where I use those caster blocks. So different caster block. These, the ZX-S, uses the LA59 caster blocks. It does show up in the manual here. If we go to here, so you're using LA59, but you're also cutting off the top front piece here, this outer piece that has that little extra spacing on top of the caster block. I don't know why they tell you to cut that off, because it's not like you need it for clearance or anything. you know, as the suspension moves up and down. Like this piece here isn't going to hit the wheels or anything like that. But for whatever reason, the manual has you cut that out. Okay, maybe to save weight, I don't know. And by the way, maybe it's a little hard to see here, but on the rear hub carrier, when you build that, if we go over here, let's see, right here, on the rear hub carrier, you do have to cut out a little bit here, and that's because when you put this extension on, the way that they screw in, or it's not, sorry, not the way they screw in, it's when you put this extension on and you use this upper inner hole here, this ball stud has to clear this upper corner of the rear hub carrier. So some little things you need to do there to actually make an original ZX-S suspension setup. Okay, what else did I do? Basically, it's this. Other than that, it's the same build as a ZX-S Evolution, right? I put the anti-roll bars on. Transmission is exactly the same. Shock towers are almost exactly, I guess they're exactly the same. Everything else is pretty much the same. So there's nothing all that special here. Now, I do have the one-way setup here on the ZX-S. And as you probably know from the Evo build, I had put in a special setup to lock the one-way here, or to at least put enough friction on it to make it effectively locked. So that's the difference in the drivetrain setup for these two. In terms of the wheels, I have Yokomo wheel hubs on this model, but on this one I just use the standard Kyosho Lazer rims. So some differences there. As far as what's left to do, well, I got to do bodies and wings, right? These are just placeholder wings here. Okay, so I do have one ZX-S body and wing and under tray. I have to get another one, so I got to paint those. But otherwise, these are done. And what do I think overall about this particular chassis? Though, you know, having done two of these, it had occurred to me that I'm not as impressed by them as I was when I first bought them. And they're still very cool cars, don't get me wrong. But if I think about what I would want to race with, I may have mentioned this before, my ZX-RR, which I might as well just go get it. This guy here. A normal Lazer ZXR or ZX-RR can be set up to be completely awesome. And I don't see any reason why you would need a ZX-S when this chassis can be made to be so freaking good. So if you're racing, you don't need a ZX-S or ZX-S Evolution. And there are so few of them anyway, you know, at this point they're kind of good for shelf cleans. So I don't necessarily plan on racing either of these, although I do have enough parts and I have the 3D printing capabilities now to build a reproduction ZX-S, so I might do that and play around with it. But as a racer, I don't really see much of a point to this. The ZX-RR was already quite good, and it had the sealed gearbox. You're not going to get dirt inside it of anything. The layout is a little different here because if I remember correctly, they made some changes to the geometry of the rear gearbox. I believe to what did they do? They either lengthened or shortened the placement of this. I think they made this more rear bias, so this got pulled back, and so the front belt is longer, and it changes also the rear belt. So the way it handles might be different. Yeah, I don't know. It's a cool car. I like it. It's kind of neat, and I'm certainly glad to have, you know, these two in my collection. Now I gotta find a space on my shelves for these. That's the fun part. Anyway, I I hope this was at least somewhat informative for you. Maybe not the most exciting video I've made, but I do have other stuff coming. Certainly the A&L chassis, I have a lot of work to do on that. Jeff finished up making all the repro parts, so he's going to send me back the sister chassis. There are going to be a lot of cool videos for that. I think that'll be very interesting. And over time, I got some more Kyosho stuff to do. I don't know if I'll make a video of that one. I've owned this for a long time. I just never got around to cleaning it up and rebuilding it. And there's some stuff up there too. Some Traxxas projects, which I know I did a video on one of those and I never got back to it, so I'll get there. Yeah, so anyway, that's it for now. Thanks for watching.